Washington, D.C., May 2015. The day of 46-year-old Savas Sopouloulis began almost the same way it usually did with work. He was the highly successful CEO of a major construction company, American Iron Works Incorporated. It was a leading manufacturer of custom construction products and an installation services company in the Washington, D.C. region. One longtime friend said Savas was a larger-than-life kind of man. He taught us how to have a good time, but at the same time how to do everything the right way. He was dependable, truly dependable, with a deep, contagious laugh. He was married to his high school sweetheart, Amy Martin, and one friend said they fit together like peanut butter and jelly. Savas had always had feelings for her and would tell people all she had to do was say yes. She was the woman he planned to marry. Later, they both enrolled at the same university, and that was where they truly grew close and started dating. Before long, Savas and Amy were married in a Greek wedding, and over the next several years, they had 3 children, 2 daughters, Katerina and Abigail, and a son, Philip. After Savas earned his law degree, he joined the family steel fabrication business, working closely with his father, who was also named Philip, to help expand it. The Seopoulos family soon became well known and beloved in their community, and years of hard work gave them a very comfortable life. The family lived in a magnificent multi-million-dollar mansion in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods, where over the years famous people had resided, including vice presidents and ambassadors. Savas was described as a brilliant man with an impeccable reputation, and both he and Amy were generous with both their time and money. Savas helped finance the National Child Research Center, was a member of its board of directors, and coached his children's sports teams. Amy also frequently appeared at the children's schools, baked and decorated gingerbread houses for the entire class, and helped in any way she could. Their 2 daughters, 19-year-old Abigail and 16-year-old Katerina, were attending boarding school outside the city at the time, so the house became much quieter than usual. But everyone remained busy. Amy met up with friends, hosted get-togethers and parties. Savas was working on a new business project, and Philip raced on karting tracks with his coach. Nothing made the 10-year-old boy happier. The family traveled everywhere with him for the races. He showed great promise as a serious athlete in the coming years. Jay described him as a 10-year-old boy with the mind of a 35-year-old man. He was remarkably mature and clearly took after his father. However, Philip's latest race on May 3rd did not go well, and he suffered a concussion. He was sent home to rest, but the doctor assured the family there was nothing serious to worry about. Wednesday, May 13th. Since Philip was still at home recovering, Amy stayed there with him and took care of him. They made a quick trip to the doctor to check on his condition after the concussion, then returned home. Savas was also busy that day and went to inspect his new project, a martial arts studio he was building in Virginia that was set to open just a few days later. He brought along the family housekeeper, Nitita, known as Nellie, so she could look everything over and clean up the space in preparation for the grand opening. At 4:25, a dog care company called Amy to confirm an upcoming appointment. An employee there often spoke with Amy and said that this time she sounded sleepy and unwell, not nearly as talkative as she usually was. Around 5 o'clock, Savas also received a call from Amy. The exact details of that conversation are unknown, but after the call ended, Savas told Nellie he was heading home to take care of Philip because Amy apparently had plans to go out somewhere. At that moment, Amy was at home with the second housekeeper, Vera, but Vera's shift should have ended long before then. Savas drove back, and Nellie also headed home so she could return to work the next day. Nellie had worked for the family for 20 years, and about 5 years earlier, she was the one who introduced them to Vera. Both Nellie and Vera had truly become part of the family. Vera sent all of her savings back home to her children, who lived in El Salvador and were attending college there. She was looking forward to an upcoming vacation and planned to travel there with her husband Bernardo, then retire the following year. Meanwhile, it was getting later and later, and her husband Bernardo was sitting at home, unable to understand where she could be. Vera was supposed to finish work at 3 o'clock, and for her to simply be somewhere without letting him know was completely unlike her. He called her again and again, but eventually the calls stopped going through. It seemed like her phone had either died or been turned off, and Bernardo still had a night shift ahead of him. Slujba tried to push aside his anxiety and somehow logically explain the lack of contact with his wife. Although Bernardo couldn't get through to their house, other people seemed to be able to. A series of strange calls and messages followed. Shortly before 6 o'clock p.m., the security company monitoring the family's home received a signal about broken glass outside the house. But it seemed that nothing had happened, and Savas even spoke to them himself, asking how he could access the camera recordings and where they were stored. Then Savas called his assistant and personal driver, who had only been working for him for a few months, but couldn't reach him. He left a voicemail asking him to go to American Iron Works and pick up a package. Savas said that it needed to be delivered the next morning. At 9 p.m., they called the local Domino's Pizza. They ordered 2 pepperoni pizzas and paid for the order by credit card over the phone. Before the employee hung up, Amy said, "Ring the doorbell, I'm taking care of a sick child. Just leave it by the front door." At 9:35 p.m., Savas left a voicemail for Nellie. Uncharacteristically, he told her not to come to work the next day. He explained that Vera would be staying overnight because Amy was sick. He also said that Vera's phone had run out of battery, and since they didn't have a charger, he was just passing on the message.
"Hey Nellie, it's Sava. I hope you get this message. Amy is in bed sick tonight, and she was sick this afternoon, and Vera offered to stay and help her out because, we're going through some stuff with Philip. So she's going to stay the night here, okay? Thank you. Oh, and would you send me a text when you get the message just so I can make sure? Thanks, Nellie. Good night."
Nellie would not hear that message until the following morning. When the Domino's courier arrived at the house, he followed Amy's instructions and placed the pizzas on the ground by the door. Next to the welcome mat was an envelope with a tip inside. When he picked it up, he noticed the porch light was on, but the inside of the house was completely dark and disturbingly quiet. He returned to his car and continued on his deliveries. Neither he nor anyone else could have known that a horrifying nightmare was unfolding inside that home. Absolute hell that would last through the entire night and into the next morning. Later, Savas's assistant Jordan heard the voicemail and texted him back, "Got your message. I'll call you as soon as I pick up the package." Savas called Jordan again and also contacted his chief financial officer asking for $40,000 in cash. He ordered the money withdrawn from the bank and delivered to Jordan as quickly as possible. Jordan collected the package and the cash, then headed to the Sopoloulis home. Savas gave him one very clear instruction: do not knock on the door. "Just place the package and the money inside the red sports car. Don't knock. I'll be on conference calls. Drive to Chantilly. I'll be right behind you," Savas said. That was where his new martial arts studio was located, so it did not seem like a strange place to meet later. Around 8:30 that morning, as neighbors started leaving for work and taking their children to school, they noticed that the cars belonging to Savas and Amy were still sitting in the driveway. Normally, by that time, they would have already been out and on with their day. At 9:30, Bernardo returned home after his night shift and found that Vera still had not come back. Concern turned into panic, and he drove to the Savopoulos home at 3201 Woodland Drive. Shortly before 10 o'clock, Nellie received a message from Amy that confirmed what Savas had said in the voicemail. She was absolutely not supposed to come to work that day. Nellie received that message at the exact moment she listened to the voicemail. "Hi, Nellie, it's Sava. I hope you get this message." She said Savas sounded confused and under intense stress. She could also hear what sounded like screaming in the background.
"Amy is in bed sick tonight, and she was sick this afternoon, and Vera offered to stay and help her out.
As for Slavo's words about Vera staying overnight, that had never happened before. Neither she nor Vera had ever spent the night in the house. Nellie said that it seemed very strange. She had known the family for 2 decades. Something was wrong, and she felt she wasn't being told the whole truth. She tried to call Amy but couldn't get through. Then she sent her a message. "I hope you are all right." Still no answer. When Bernardo arrived at the house on Woodland Rio, he was also met with silence. He rang the doorbell and started banging on the door. According to him, although no voices could be heard inside, it seemed like someone was there. He heard noises, rustling, muffled murmuring, and also dogs barking. Then he heard a sound like scraping, as if someone was dragging a chair across the floor. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was Savas. He told him, "Sorry I didn't call you last night. Vera stayed with us for the night," he said. "I'm sorry again and again." He explained that Emmy got sick and now Vera has taken her to the hospital. That's why she's not there. Savas was literally standing on the other side of the door. So why didn't he just open it and talk to him? It was strange. But at least he heard someone from the house. So maybe it was just in his head, and he was just winding himself up. Bernardo hung up and went home, waiting to see his wife later. Meanwhile, Jordan arrived at the house, put the package and the money in the car, and then returned to his own vehicle. At 10:26 a.m., Jordan texted Sava with a message. "The package has been delivered." He sat in the car for a minute, looking at his phone. In the chat with Sava, 3 dots would appear and then disappear. Then they would appear again, but he never received a reply. 1:30 in the afternoon. Residents in the neighborhood began calling 911, reporting a fire on Woodland Drive. The Sopalulis family home was engulfed in flames and the fire was spreading fast. The family's dogs were reportedly found outside terrified, but physically unharmed. Once firefighters brought the intense blaze under control and were able to enter the house, they discovered 4 people inside. In one of the bedrooms lay Savas, Amy, and Vera. In a nearby room, they found 10-year-old Philip. His body was so severely burned that he could not be identified. Investigators were not even able to determine his sex right away. In official records, he was initially listed simply as an unidentified adult of unknown sex. Savas, Amy, and Philip were dead, but Vera was found unconscious and still fighting for her life. She was rushed to the hospital with horrific injuries, but doctors were unable to save her. Autopsies confirmed that all 4 victims had been beaten with a baseball bat, strangled, restrained, and stabbed. Savas and Amy died from blunt force trauma and sharp force injuries. The medical examiner said Philip had suffered those same injuries as well, including wounds caused by a samurai sword, but it was also possible that he burned alive in his bed the same place where he was found. Because of the severity of the damage, that could never be determined with certainty. All 4 victims had been doused in gasoline, and the fire was intentionally set in Philip's room. Marks from adhesive tape were found on the wrists of Amy and Vera, and Savas had been bound, likely with a plastic zip tie. These were horrifying autopsy findings that confirmed one terrible truth. Everyone inside that house had been brutally tortured for an extended period of time.
Willie, good morning to you. This community so badly wants answers, but so far there are still very few. Police saying little about a possible motive. They're saying almost nothing about who they believe may have been responsible for these crimes. But who would want to target the Savopoulos family? This morning, we're learning new details about the father of this family, Savas Savopoulos, a powerful business executive. This morning, crime scene investigators are zeroing in on a series of surveillance cameras surrounding the multi-million-dollar Savopoulos family home that authorities believe may have been disabled by the attackers, who police say were likely familiar with the family's routine.
Right now, we have nothing to suggest that this was just a random attack.
At the end of the terrifying overnight ordeal, sources familiar with the case say the Savapouloses and their longtime housekeeper were brutally beaten and stabbed. Their 10-year-old son burned so badly it's unclear whether he was assaulted. Their neighbors in one of Washington, D.C.'s most upscale communities say the family was always friendly.
Their kids came trick-or-treating. The wife particularly was very active in the neighborhood.
Online, an outpouring of support for the Savopoulos' 2 surviving teenage daughters, who were believed to be away at boarding school at the time of the attack. Back live right now outside the Savopoulos home, police have set up a $25,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest here, and they haven't slowed down the pace of their gathering evidence. We saw a dozen detectives go in and out and around this home again yesterday, as the police chief in Washington, D.C. told us this is going to take some time. Savannah and Willie, back to you.
All right, Peter Alexander, thanks so much, and your heart just breaks for those 2 surviving daughters.
The daughters have lost so much.
One of the windows on the side of the house was broken, the phone lines had been cut, and on one of the doors there was a boot print indicating that the door might have been kicked in, since the print did not match the firefighters' footwear. In the window frame, they found a knife stuck in, as if it had been used to prop the frame open. And the computer with the recordings from the home surveillance system had been ripped out of the attic. The keyboard and wires were left in place, but the computer itself was missing. It was never found. The neighbors saw and heard almost nothing. But a few residents reported that around noon, about an hour and a half before the fire started, they saw a middle-aged man. He was dark-skinned, with dreadlocks, and was seen entering the family's garage. It didn't look like he broke the door open by force. It seemed that the door simply opened for him, or someone from inside let him in. A 2008 blue Porsche registered to the family had been sitting in the driveway that morning, but later it disappeared. One surveillance camera in northeast Washington, D.C. captured that Porsche traveling east toward Maryland shortly after the house was engulfed in flames, so it appeared that this vehicle had become the getaway car for whoever committed the crime. Later, police found the burning vehicle in the rear section of a parking lot near a church. Security footage showed someone in dark clothing running away from the car while carrying an object that looked like a white box, but the person could not be identified. After the fire was extinguished, investigators found a green construction vest inside the car. It had remained in relatively good condition, which meant it could be tested for DNA.
When firefighters got to this house in one of Washington's most upscale neighborhoods, just blocks from the vice president's residence, the smoke and flames were still shooting out of the second floor. Now the fire has turned into a case of suspected arson and a murder mystery. Police seeking to talk to this man, caught on surveillance video racing away wearing a hoodie and carrying a large white object. Police believe he may have been driving the family's blue Porsche that was found abandoned and torched in a Maryland suburb outside Washington.
We don't know who had the car, but obviously the conditions where it was, in which it was found, set a fire shortly after they were discovered. We certainly want to know if anybody saw that car and who was in the car.
Adding to the mystery, another employee of the family told CNN affiliate WJLA she received a text from Amy Savopoulos hours before the fire telling her to stay away.
I don't understand why. God saved my life. Around 9:56 a.m. and they say, I want to make sure you do not come today.
As of Monday, the D.C. medical examiner still had not determined whether the cause and manner of death was blunt force trauma, stab wounds, smoke inhalation, or something else. But police quickly called this homicide and said the victims had been attacked before the fire started.
In that last call, the father said on the recording that his wife was not feeling well. Authorities have said there's no sign of forced entry at this house, so the investigation continues.
Meanwhile, everything that remained inside the Savopoulos family home was being carefully searched and examined. A large amount of cash had been left behind, along with extremely valuable items, artwork, and jewelry. Investigators also found a half-eaten Domino's pizza that had not been touched by the fire. That was when they learned Amy had made a call at 9 o'clock that night to place the order. But based on what was already known about the nature of their injuries, it appeared the killer had forced Amy to make that call. It also seemed likely that he was the one who ate the pizza. Investigators strongly hoped to recover DNA from the leftover crusts, so those were sent to the lab as well. 19-year-old Katerina posted separate farewell messages on Facebook for her family members. To her father, alongside a photo of the two of them together, she wrote, "You will always be my hero and my role model. I will love you forever and miss you so much. Thank you for teaching me courage, loyalty, and how to believe in myself. Love you to the moon and back, Bubba." For her mother, she shared another photo of them together and captioned it with a phrase they often said to each other, "In a while, crocodile." Then she added, "Thank you for being the best mom I could have ever dreamed of. I love you, Mommy, and I'll miss you every single day." And to her younger brother, she wrote simply, "I would give anything to see that smile one more time. I love you, and I miss you."
This is where they said goodbye to 3 of the 4 victims of this crime. One by one, 3 caskets slowly ascended the steps of the St. Sophia Greek Orthodox Cathedral.
So sad, there's not much to say. It's just heartbreaking, tragic.
Mourners at the funeral said the service focused on the family's love of community and their commitment to charity. 2 of the mourners watching the caskets were the couple's teenage daughters, Katerina and Abigail, who were both away at school during the crime.
It's a terrible tragedy. I feel so sorry for the girls.
The 4th victim of this brutal murder was the family's housekeeper, Vera Figueroa. Her body is being prepared for transfer and burial in her native El Salvador.
Meanwhile, the results of the forensic examinations began to come in. And incredibly, the investigators actually obtained DNA from the saliva found on the pizza crusts. It belonged to a person who had long been in their database. It's remarkable to think that someone decided to bag the leftover pizza as evidence instead of just throwing it away without a second thought. Summit moved so quickly, the investigation focused on the suspect. And just a week after the murder, on May 20th, an arrest warrant was issued for 34-year-old Darren Dellen Dennis Dinton.
A suspect in the case of the family murder, their home set on fire in Washington, D.C. He is considered armed and dangerous.
Tonight, there is a manhunt on.
A frantic interstate manhunt underway for this man, charged with first-degree murder.
The police identified the suspect today as Darren Dylan Went.
Tonight, the NYPD is passing out this wanted poster and scouring surveillance video to see if Darren Went was ever here in Brooklyn to visit his girlfriend.
At the moment, police are hopeful that they can make an arrest, but they don't know exactly where Went is.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I first want to say how grateful I am and the residents of the District of Columbia are to the hardworking men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department, as well as our Fire and Emergency Medical Service that responded last week to the home of Amy and Sava Savopoulos. But we're also grateful to our partner agencies at the ATF and the Secret Service service who have been working on this case 24/7 since last Thursday. And all of us are focused on finding the perpetrator of this act of evil on Woodland in our Ward 3 community. I also know that you are all aware that MPD has identified a suspect, 34-year-old Darren Dylan Went. He is currently at large, and we continue to seek the public's assistance in locating Went.
At this time, we do not have the suspect in custody. Darren Went is a black male with dark complexion. He's approximately 5'7" in height and weighs about 155 pounds. We have information that he was last seen wearing blue jeans, a blue hooded sweatshirt, and white tennis shoes. Over the past 24 hours, the Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force has searched several locations in Prince George's County, Maryland, looking for Mr. Went. Information gained from interviews and new information in the past few hours, we have information that we believe Mr. Went is currently in the Brooklyn, New York area. The task force is continuing to search for Mr. Went. I have been in contact with the commissioner from the NYPD. They have offered and are providing all assistance that we need in trying to locate Mr. Went.
Darren's DNA was found on a knife near the window, on a bed, and on the green construction vest that had been lying inside the Porsche. The burned vehicle was discovered about a 2-minute walk from the apartment complex where Darren had once lived. In addition to the DNA evidence, investigators learned that Darren had worked for Savas's company as a welder about 10 years earlier. He had also done occasional jobs at the Sopaloulis family home. Co-workers at American Iron Works said Savas was friendly with employees and tried to get to know everyone on a personal level. Darren had once been one of those people. But Darren's time at Iron Works did not last long. He was fired after threatening a co-worker with a knife. After that, Darren struggled to find steady employment, and in 2008 and 2009, he contacted Iron Works asking for a second chance, but was turned down. Darren came to the United States in 2000 as a recruit for the United States Marine Corps, but he was discharged before completing training for medical reasons. Over time, he built up a long record of charges and convictions, including assault, intentional property damage, burglary and theft, domestic violence, sexual offenses, and illegal weapons possession. At the time of this crime, his green card was already in jeopardy because of a case involving possession of stolen property. However, some agencies had not been properly notified, so for a period of time, he effectively remained off the radar. In 2005, even his own father filed for a protective order against him. Then in 2010, he was detained at a gas station across from American Iron Works while carrying a handgun and a machete. One day after the warrant was issued, at 11 o'clock that night, Darren was finally tracked down while riding in a truck with 3 other people. Ever since seeing his name and face in the news, he had been hiding, even using a taxi to travel from Washington, D.C. to New York City. His girlfriend called police and told them where he could be found after realizing he was wanted. Inside the vehicle, $100 bills were scattered around. In the end, he was arrested. Darren lived with his father, stepmother, and siblings. His stepmother said he spent his days looking for work, going to the gym, and spending a lot of time on his phone and computer. Sometimes he even used his brother's name, Stefan. Although he was active on Facebook, there was no activity on his page between 6 o'clock in the morning on May 13th and 6 o'clock in the evening on May 14th. People tried to contact him, including his girlfriend Vanessa, who messaged him on May 14th but received no reply. A few hours after the arson, he sent her a message with a photo of 2 iPhone devices and asked whether they could be tracked. While on the run, he also searched online for how to beat a polygraph, 10 cities for fugitives to hide, and countries with no extradition treaty.
The man wanted for the murder of 4 people in a Northwest home is behind bars this noon. The search for Darren Went took police to New York and back. But last night, they got their man.
Larry, what a wild 48 hours. U.S. Marshals traveled more than 400 miles tailing this very dangerous man. He'd led them to this Howard Johnson here in College Park. He checked into that room, 412. Just miles away, he was arrested. ABC 7 News cameras were the first on the scene, and we were rolling when it all unfolded. Take a look. Went already has a long laundry list of past problems with the law, including assault and sex offense.
We tracked him up to New York City, and we barely missed him last night. We have our New York, New Jersey Regional Fugitive Task Force together with NYPD.
Sources tell ABC 7 News a large amount of cash was found inside the box truck his brother was driving.
Saw 2-3 police officers going down that way. Didn't think much about it because he was supposed to be up in Brooklyn, I thought.
Hours after the arrest, the Savopoulos family released a statement saying in part, quote, "We are thankful to law enforcement who have worked so diligently to bring about an arrest in this case. While it does not abate our pain, we hope that it begins to restore a sense of calm and security to our neighborhood and to our city." The Savopoulos family saying they and the Vera Figueroa family have suffered unimaginable loss. Back here live, again, that is the room where Darren Wint spent some time here in College Park. Police are still here at the hotel. Darren Wint will be in a D.C. courtroom later this afternoon. He is charged with first-degree felony murder while armed. Reporting live in College Park, John Gonzalez, ABC 7 News.
So what really happened? The complete chronology of events between May 13th and 14th still remains fragmented. It was only possible to piece it together from individual calls and messages. It is believed that Darren entered the house at around 3:30 p.m. It is still not exactly known how this happened. Did Emmy, knowing him personally, let him in herself? Or did he somehow break in by force? It is believed that the stick used to prop up the window was placed there by him after he had already entered. He jammed the window with it so he could watch as Jordan brought the money. When Savas returned home, thinking he was supposed to look after the son while Amy went out on errands, he actually entered the house and found that everyone was already being held captive and tied up. Darren tortured them for the next 19 hours. Despite the fact that the family complied with all his demands, never raised the alarm, called for help, or even handed over $40,000, he still killed them in the most brutal way. Darren, he was charged with first-degree assault with a weapon and held without bail. Soon he was already facing 20 points, prosecution. He pleaded not guilty, stating that the crime was committed by his brothers Daryl and Stephen, and he allegedly was just in another room and didn't understand what was happening. Darren's lawyer also put forward an incredible argument against the DNA evidence. He said that despite the DNA found on the pizza crust, his client doesn't like pizza and never eats it, calling DNA a pseudoscience.
Defense attorney hired by Darren Wint's family speaking out, telling ABC News he believes the police have blinders on when it comes to the 34-year-old accused of quadruple homicide and arson.
They believe, perhaps honestly, that they have the man, but as a result of that, they're not looking elsewhere.
Robin Ficker, who has represented the former Marine recruit in past unrelated cases, says so far he has only been hired to get Wint's side of the story, telling us Wint's mother is devastated and in disbelief.
She's distraught. She can't believe that he would have done anything like this at all.
It's a giant Olympic-sized broad jump from a piece of pizza to 4 homicides. I know him to be a kind, gentle, non-aggressive person, someone you wouldn't mind your grandmother going to lunch with.
His mother doesn't like pizza. His sister doesn't like pizza. DNA is a junk science.
But what does that have to do with anything, whether or not it's his top food choice? If the fact of the matter is his DNA puts him right there at the scene, how do you explain why his DNA is in that particular home? He's got the motive. He has the opportunities. A disgruntled employee had problems with that. Why is he there? You still can't identify why or explain why your client would be there. Plus, your client is somebody who has a criminal record, domestic violence, and assault. So all of those things are in keeping with conduct that we're seeing at this particular...
Some investigators genuinely believed it was unlikely Darren could have carried out all of this entirely on his own. One witness told police he saw Amy's Porsche being driven by a man with short, well-groomed hair who was wearing a bright green construction vest. Darren had dreadlocks. Jordan Wallace also came under suspicion because he changed several details in his statements, including where exactly he said he had left the money inside the car.
Detectives investigating the murders of 4 people in the Washington, D.C. mansion are focusing now on a former assistant to one of the victims.
Search warrants reveal police suspicions aimed at the man who delivered the ransom, Jordan Wallace, the personal driver and assistant to businessman Savas Savopoulos. Police say that Wallace lied or changed his account about the $40,000 he took to the home on the morning of the murders, including how he received the package, where he left it, and when he was told to get the package. Investigators got a warrant for Wallace's texts, calls, and locations going back to Sunday, May the 10th, 3 days before the family was held captive, tortured, and later killed. But the prime suspect remains Darren Wint, who's now in custody. Police are also still looking for video from the family's extensive security system. We learned today that the video recorder is missing. Police believe that the assailants in this crime stole the cell phones of the 3 adult victims, and investigators are now tracking the locations of those phones. As for Jordan Wallace, Charlie, he has not returned our calls seeking comment.
He also took a photo of the money and sent it to a friend. He later deleted both the message and the picture. He had only been working for Savas for a few months and told police that he simply panicked when he realized what had happened. According to him, he quickly deleted the photo and the conversation because he was afraid he would be fired if anyone found out Savas would have seen it as disrespectful. As part of the investigation, 2 men and 3 women were also taken into custody.
Men and women who were taken into custody along with the main suspect, but they were later released.
And yet, no one other than Darren was ever charged. One of his brothers also provided a strong alibi and later even testified against him.
The man charged in connection with the case is back with public defenders. We learned just a short time ago the attorney hired by Darren Wint's family is no longer representing him.
Well, there are other big headlines today coming from the Mansion murders trial. It's just getting underway. We knew before opening statements that Darren Wint's lawyers would point the finger at somebody else. Well, tonight, Stephen Cheetah reports it's right at Wint's brothers.
More than 3 years later, in 2018, a 7-week trial began with a large number of witnesses and experts. Darren's lawyer claimed that it was actually his 2 brothers who planned and carried out the murder and that Jordan was also involved. According to their version, it was a large conspiracy aimed at extorting money from the Savases. They stated that Darren once lived in the same apartment complex as Jordan's father. Therefore, there was a high probability that they had crossed paths before and established a connection. The defense also emphasized that the green vest found in the Porsche contained DNA from Darren, Savas, and another unidentified person whose profile did not match anyone in the databases at that time. Jordan testified against Darren and admitted that it was true. He took a photo of the money, but had nothing to do with the actual crime. He explained that he was simply shocked by the amount he was transporting, and the message he later deleted said something like, "I have a possible job." So it was more like showing off. Darren's attorney claimed that Jordan had taken a photo showing only 2 bundles of cash, even though $40,000 should have amounted to 4 bundles. In Jordan's backpack, investigators also found a passport, a checkbook, and documents for one of Savas' sports cars valued at $300,000. It's strange to be carrying things like that if you're simply driving back and forth for work, Darren's attorney argued. However, police reviewed all of it independently and remained confident that Jordan was not involved in the crime.
It was haunting video taken in the days after the murders and the first time jurors got a look inside the Savopoulos home. While many watched in horror, Darren Wint, the only suspect charged, showed no emotion when the footage showed the charred bedroom and the burned coils from a box spring, the only thing left of a bed where 10-year-old Philip Savopoulos was found. The prosecution started the day by calling Amy Savopoulos' father, James Martin, to the witness stand in what was an emotional start to the day. Martin was followed by several other witnesses, including the director of reservations at a pet boarding company, a business the Savopoulos family used frequently to board their 2 dogs. This woman testified that on May 13th, the day the family and their housekeeper were held hostage, her staff called the home at 3:14 to confirm their upcoming reservation for the dogs, but their landline phone was disconnected. Throughout the day, voice messages were left on Amy's cell phone. She described Amy as sounding sleepy. She was rushing. This time was different. Prosecutors say Amy was being held hostage at the time of the call. Earlier that day, at around 3:25, a neighbor testified that she saw Amy Savopoulos walking in a nice outfit near Calvert and Cleveland in Northwest. She says she was wearing a knee-length skirt, flat shoes, sweater across her shoulder, and a nice leather bag. She had her head down like she was deep in thought. She was clearly walking to get somewhere. But the defense team tried to dilute the neighbor's testimony by showing the jury surveillance video of Amy and her son Philip from 6 hours earlier in the day. She was wearing a different outfit with a different bag. It was one way the defense tried to sow doubt in the jurors' minds.
Prosecutors acknowledged that other people may have been involved in the crime, but they emphasized one key point. Even if Darren Wint had accomplices, he was still guilty. According to their theory, the motive was driven by greed and revenge. Regarding the green construction vest, prosecutors said that kind of clothing is often used by different people, so anyone's DNA could have ended up on it. But that did not prove involvement in the crime. And if it had belonged to Jordan or one of Darren's brothers, that could have been easily confirmed or ruled out. Ron Hosko, who spent 30 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, said, "I see too many threads leading back to one person. That person is Darren Wint, a former employee. A man with a history of anger and violence. A man who still had a connection to Mr. Sopoloulis and the company even after being fired. He is the one who ends up near the money delivered to the house. His DNA was found in 2 places connected to the crime. To me, all the evidence closes in on Darren Wint. The only question is whether he had help. And if he did, what kind of help was it?" He also said it was entirely possible that Jordan's story changed somewhat as he retold it because of intense stress and the sheer scale of the tragedy. People often forget things or get confused when they go through something like this, especially once they realize just how close they themselves were to mortal danger. Darren testified in his own defense and said that yes, he was at the Sopolis family's house for decorating work, but that this job was supposedly arranged by Darren. He claimed that he was lured there under false pretenses, and when he found out that Darren wanted to rob the house, he left. At the same time, he admitted that he stayed there long enough to eat a slice of pizza. Stepmother. Darren also testified against him and said that for 36 hours. At the time when the attack on the family's house occurred, neither he nor his van were seen by anyone. According to her, this immediately seemed strange to her, because in the 2 months since he had been living with her, he had never disappeared for so long. Only at 6:00 p.m. The next day he returned home. After that, he argued with his father and said that he was under a lot of stress. 37-year-old Darren was found guilty on all counts of the charges, specifically of first-degree murder, kidnapping, unlawful entry, extortion, arson, and theft.
Now to that breaking news from D.C. Darren Wint, the man convicted of the notorious Mansion murders, will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
The sentence that she did with the 4 consecutive terms of life without release. So we thank her for that. We thank the jury for their hard work. I can't imagine how hard it was for them. And hopefully this brings a little bit of closure to the families. You don't often see something this senseless. There was no reason for this. He got what he wanted. He got the money. He could have just left. To do what he did to 4 people, including a 10-year-old boy, I think is just beyond words. I can't imagine what those parents were going through.
There's no remorse in his mind. He thinks he's a victim in all of this somehow. Evil, I guess.
He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Later, the District of Columbia Court of Appeals denied Darren W. a new trial. He filed an appeal in December 2020, but 2 years later the convictions were upheld, and he was not granted a new proceeding. To this day, no one other than Darren has ever been charged in connection with these murders. Darren himself has never publicly spoken about the case since then, nor has he named anyone else. For many people, this case still leaves questions behind. Some details still do not fit neatly into one clear picture. Could he really have done all of this alone? Who did the witness see in the Porsche? And was it even the same car at all? If money was the motive, why were so many valuable items simply left to burn inside the house? For others, though, everything seems completely clear. What was known about Darren, his past relationship and work history with Savas and his company, along with his increasingly serious criminal path, gave little reason to believe he would stop. A desperate man with no money who had already been arrested multiple times for violent and brutal behavior. He had been inside the family home before. He knew what was there, and he knew what he could do to get what he wanted. The DNA evidence pointed only to him, and neighbors saw a person matching his description entering the garage. What remained of the family home was demolished in 2017, and a new mansion was built in its place.
A decade since the discovery of a gruesome quadruple murder in the district.
And even after so many years, the events of May 2015 are still widely remembered. And law enforcement officials call this one of the most horrific and shocking crimes in DC's recent history. Savas, Amy, Vera, and Philip were held hostage and tortured for nearly 19 hours. The full extent of what happened in that house will never be completely known. But for Abigail and Katarina, for Vera's husband Bernardo, for their children, for Nellie, even for Jordan the courier, and for Savas' employees, the list of questions and thoughts goes on. They keep replaying it over and over again. So many what-ifs that almost immediately turn into other thoughts. But who could have known? Who could have imagined what was going on there? This endless cycle of fleeting thoughts, together with all-consuming grief and pain, even the loss of loved ones in such a horrific way, remains forever in the hearts of all those affected. On this sad note, friends, we will be ending our video. Thank you for watching it until the end. Thank you for your support and the time you've spent. Be sure to leave your comments on the topic of our video, subscribe, and give a like if you enjoyed my presentation. I wish you all a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. The city of Mon in central Georgia. Today, we're getting to know 27-year-old Lauren Giddings. Born to Karen and Bill, Lauren had two sisters, Sarah and Caitlin, and she was the oldest of the three. They were an incredibly close family, and according to them, the real star of the household was Lauren's dog, Butterbean. Lauren had always been driven, and her dream was to become a public defender. In the spring of 2008, she moved from Maryland to Mon, Georgia to make that dream happen. Locals say Mon is the kind of town that feels calm and laid back. Everyone is friendly, you never really meet a stranger there, and overall it's a quiet, peaceful place to live and study. Lauren immediately fell in love with her new city. She was in a long-distance relationship with David Van Diver, a corporate attorney, and the two had met 4 years earlier at a law firm in Atlanta where he worked. Even though she was nearly 2 decades younger than him, they had so much in common, and David often said Lauren was wise beyond her years. They clicked right away, shared the same work ethic, had a similar dry but funny sense of humor, and supported each other through some really difficult personal and professional moments in their lives. David described her as straightforward, intelligent, and incredibly level-headed. Lauren even managed to win over his extremely protective older sister. David joked that it was basically a miracle, because nobody had ever pulled that off before. What Lauren didn't know was that David had already been planning to propose to her. He had even picked out the perfect place to do it. But after her move, the huge distance between them started putting pressure on the relationship, and for a short time, they broke up. Lauren started dating another student named Joe, but she quickly realized she was still deeply in love with David and truly wanted to save their relationship, so she ended things with Joe. It hit him pretty hard, but despite that, they still managed to stay good friends. Now let's jump ahead to June of 2011. Lauren had just graduated from one of the oldest law schools in the United States, the School of Law at Mercy University. Of course, Butterbean was there to watch her receive her diploma, along with David and her entire family. Lauren was excited to finally put everything she had learned into practice and fully step into this next chapter of her life. The next big milestone was passing the Georgia bar exam, and she dedicated every free second she had to studying for it. And you know what hurts the most in stories like this? Lauren was truly a very kind person. She wasn't confrontational, had no enemies, was building her career, dreamed of becoming a lawyer, had a loving family, a boyfriend, and friends. Her life was literally just beginning. And when you look at her photos, read about her, listen to how her loved ones talk about her, you realize that she was someone who just wanted a normal, peaceful life. She studied a lot, worked hard, and genuinely tried to build something truly good for herself. And the scariest thing about this story is that the danger was literally always right next to her. Not somewhere on a dark street, not from some random person, but right behind the wall. And honestly, I think it's exactly these kinds of stories that are the most frightening. Because here, there isn't a moment where you can say she did something wrong. Lauren was just living her life. And it's exactly these kinds of people who often become victims of those they don't even perceive as a threat. After graduating, she traveled to Maryland for her sister Caitlin's wedding, and afterwards she told her family she really needed to focus and completely throw herself into work. Everyone understood this would probably be the last time they'd all see each other for quite a while, and that made Caitlin's big day feel even more meaningful. Like a lot of students after graduation, Lauren decided to stay in Mon instead of moving back to Baltimore. She was living on the second floor of Barrister's Hall in apartment number 2. Barrister's Hall was a housing complex built specifically for law students, located directly across from the campus. The fact that she could still stop by, talk with professors, and use the library while preparing for the bar exam made staying there a pretty obvious choice. But inside her apartment, the safe and quiet space she was used to started feeling completely different. Lauren told her sister about something she couldn't prove and knew sounded strange, but she was convinced it was really happening. She felt like things inside her apartment were being moved around, almost as if someone had been coming inside while she was gone. Whenever she came home after being out, there was this weird feeling in the apartment that she just couldn't explain. She started feeling like someone was watching her, but there were no signs of a break-in, so she couldn't understand how any of it was even possible. That unsettling feeling never really went away. Then, late at night on June 25th, 2011, she sent David an email telling him about everything that had been bothering her.
And here's where it gets truly chilling. Because imagine she felt that something was wrong. She literally told people that someone might be coming into her apartment. But when there's no evidence, you start to think you're just imagining things. I think a lot of people have had this strange feeling at least once in their lives. Anxiety. When it feels like something is wrong, but you can't explain it logically. And the scariest part is that Lauren actually wasn't wrong. While she was trying to convince herself that it was maybe just fear or stress from studying, her future killer was already literally watching her. And realizing this makes the story even more horrifying.
David told her not to worry and suggested it was probably just some people messing around, without any real intention of doing something serious. And honestly, Lauren had been working non-stop and barely leaving her apartment at all. So it seemed completely possible that, without even realizing it, she was starting to lose it a little from being stuck inside those four walls all day long. Lauren even sent out a mass message that said, in part, "Hey everyone, I'm completely buried in studying for the bar exam right now. Please don't be upset if I don't respond to messages or emails." And over the next few days, nobody heard anything from her. Other than going to church and occasionally working out, she was spending basically all of her time studying. So at first, a few unanswered texts or calls didn't seem all that alarming. But her best friend Katie and her sister Caitlin kept trying to reach her over and over again, and every single time they were met with silence. Caitlin was on her honeymoon and had been sending photos, so it felt strange that Lauren wasn't even replying to those. At that point, it no longer seemed like she was just busy. It started feeling like something was wrong. One of the students, Ashley, got a call from Caitlin asking her to go by Lauren's apartment and check if everything was okay. Before heading over there, Ashley tried calling her too, but Lauren's phone immediately went straight to voicemail. Ashley and her boyfriend drove over to the building and noticed Lauren's car was still parked outside. Using a spare key, they let themselves into the apartment. Some of Lauren's belongings were scattered around, but that didn't seem unusual because she was in the middle of preparing to move in with David. But then they looked at her calendar and realized the moving date was literally the very next day, June 30th. Then they found Lauren's purse, her law books, her cell phone, and her laptop, things everyone believed she would never willingly leave behind. So where was she?
Thank you for watching. In true crime, there are certain moments after which you already have a rough idea of how things will end. And this is one of those moments. Because when a person disappears but leaves their phone, laptop, documents, car, and all their personal belongings at home, it almost never means anything good. Especially when it comes to Lauren. She was a very responsible person. She had a move ahead of her, a career, a new life. She couldn't have just disappeared without a trace. And I think that at this very moment, her friends already started to realize deep down that this wasn't just her not answering somewhere. At this point, it really started to get scary. And the worst part is, they had no idea how close the killer already was at that moment.
Ashley started calling friends and people who lived in the same apartment complex. Even Lauren's ex-boyfriend Joe began searching for her around the university, while everyone else checked the surrounding area. Everyone agreed on one thing: the last time anyone had seen or heard from Lauren was 4 days earlier at an end-of-year party. But the next morning, she had left the party and everything seemed completely normal. Then, just a few hours later, she sent David the email about the fears she was having inside her apartment. By the next morning, with the search still turning up absolutely nothing, it was finally time to call the police, and her family began an almost 12-hour drive to Georgia to help. At 9 o'clock that morning, officers arrived at apartment number 2 in Barrister's Hall. Right away, they noticed there were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, and nothing appeared to be stolen. But everyone agreed on one thing: something was definitely wrong. Police started carefully searching through the rooms, and one of the first things they did was use luminol spray to check for traces of blood. At first, everything came back clean. But when they tested Lauren's bathroom, the results were completely different. Her bathtub had very clearly been filled with blood. At that moment, investigators realized they were most likely no longer searching for a missing person. They were searching for Lauren's body. June 30th was a hot day with strong winds, and when investigators stepped outside to come up with a new search plan, a sudden gust of wind carried a smell directly toward them. They were standing not far from the dumpsters, and the odor instantly stopped them in their tracks. There was no mistaking it, it was the smell of human decomposition. One of the officers later said, "While we were standing there, the wind suddenly shifted. In life, everybody experiences bad smells. But the smell of a body, or a decomposing body, is one of the worst things you can ever experience." The officers opened the dumpster lids and made a horrifying discovery that stayed with them forever. Inside was a woman's torso wrapped in a black trash bag. An official examination still needed to be done, but considering Lauren had vanished and the luminol results from her bathroom, investigators had very little doubt that the remains belonged to her.
Honestly, this is where the story becomes truly hard to take in. Because up until this moment, there was still at least some hope that Lauren was alive. But after this discovery, everyone started to realize what they were really dealing with. And what shocks me most in stories like this isn't even the fact of the murder itself, but how cold-bloodedly it was carried out. The person didn't just kill Lauren, they literally tried to hide her, as if she were some kind of object. Not a living person with her own family, dreams, and future. And the scariest part is that while the police were finding her remains, the killer himself was already nearby, talking to journalists, watching the investigation, and pretending to be concerned as well. Realizing this makes the case even more chilling.
I had never seen anything like that before. Who could even do something like this? Because honestly, only a monster is capable of something that horrifying. It was absolutely terrible. One of the detectives later said there had been a strange twist of fate that morning. Police vehicles parked near the entrance had blocked the garbage truck from reaching the dumpsters. If officers hadn't been standing there at that exact moment and sealing off the area, all of the trash would have already been hauled away before the search even began. As investigators suspected, the medical examiner confirmed the torso belonged to Lauren Giddings. The chief medical examiner later stated there was no evidence of sexual assault, but the exact cause of death could not be determined. Even so, investigators believed Lauren had been killed and dismembered on June 26th. Lauren's apartment, especially the bathroom, was now being carefully processed for fingerprints and other evidence. But it looked like someone had gone to great lengths to clean everything up, and the only thing revealing the presence of blood was the luminol. Police sealed off the entire area around the building and tried to keep what they had discovered from becoming public. If the killer was someone living inside the complex, they didn't want that person learning about the discovery and trying to flee or destroy more evidence. One of the officers said, "You have to look at the people closest to the victim romantically or geographically. Ashley, Joe, and several other people involved in the initial search for Lauren were asked to come in and give statements." Investigators also spoke with her partner David, but not only was he devastated, he was also in California on a golf trip at the time of the murder, and his alibi was completely verified. It quickly became obvious he had nothing to do with it. Lauren's ex-boyfriend Joe was also ruled out as a suspect fairly quickly. Police wanted to search every apartment in the building so they could gradually eliminate residents from the suspect pool. Everyone agreed to it. Everyone except one person, 25-year-old Stephen McDaniel. And right away, that raised questions. Why was this such a problem for him? That's just the lawyer in me talking. I've always been very protective of my personal space. He said he was also a law student preparing for the bar exam and had lived next door to Lauren since their first year of school. Apartment number 4. Stephen had even taken part in the initial search for Lauren, walking around the area alongside her friends, and just a few hours earlier, he had been asked to come down to the police station.
With me is her next door neighbor who lives in apartment 4. Can I get your last name?
McDaniel. Stephen McDaniel.
When was the last time you think you seen Lauren?
It was either last week or the week before that. I was coming back from bar prep and I was driving back and I saw her going out to run.
Is there anything that you could tell me today or add to your statement that could help me locate Lauren?
I can't think of anything. I mean, we looked around to see if there was a note or if there was anything, but there was just nothing that we could find to try and figure out where she was.
Police continued searching the rest of the building, but they also kept a close eye on Stephen. Something about his behavior felt off. On one hand, he refused to help with anything specific, but at the same time, he constantly lingered nearby watching everything that was happening. Stephen stayed there the entire day, observing everyone around him and following officers as they went in and out of residents' apartments. His behavior was already raising suspicions, and things became even stranger once the media started interviewing people. He was one of the very first residents to agree to speak with reporters, and he immediately began sharing his own theories about what might have happened to Lauren.
That was living there?
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
Did you see her hang out with anyone at the time, anything like that?
I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I haven't seen anything. I mean, you always hear noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much. I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know anybody any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because, I mean, we went over, one of her friends had a key, we went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but, I mean, she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. I mean, the door was locked when everyone got here.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
At that point, only a small number of people knew what had been discovered inside the dumpster. And after the interview ended, Stephen just sat there for a long time, staring blankly into space.
No, they haven't confirmed, at least not with us, that it was Lauren that they found. Are you holding out any hope right now?
I hope, but...
You hadn't heard anything about a body until you were talking to us earlier?
No, as far as any of us knew, they were still trying to just find her. Joe, he got onto her computer last night to see if she had said anything. She'd sent an email out to some people. There was an email that she sent out after 10 that night where she sent to, I think it was someone in Atlanta, a friend of hers in Atlanta. She was afraid in her apartment that she thought that someone had tried to break in on Thursday night, and she was afraid to stay in there. But
where did you hear that from Joe?
He pulled it up and we read it off the screen.
I hadn't heard anything on Thursday night.
No.
She never came to you to tell you anything?
No, she was afraid in her apartment, then, get her out of there.
And now, when we already know who was really behind all of this interview looks simply horrifying. Because, pay attention, Stephen doesn't behave like someone who is genuinely worried about his neighbor's disappearance. It's as if he's playing a role. He stands in front of the cameras, trying to look concerned. He talks about the search for Lauren. But at the same time, there's something very unnatural about his behavior. And the moment when he suddenly finds out about the discovered body, honestly, it's one of the most chilling scenes in this whole case. Because it gives the impression that, for just a second, he simply lost control of his emotions. And the scariest part is that, at that moment, no one around even realized that the killer was literally standing right in front of them, giving interviews to journalists. A few hours later, he finally allowed police to enter his apartment. It turned out Stephen had been stockpiling food, energy drinks, and also owned a large collection of weapons. Officers started going through his drawers and found various items, including condoms. When police pulled them out, Stephen awkwardly muttered something about being a virgin and saving himself for marriage. Then he started telling investigators about the dating site eHarmony, where he had a profile, but claimed he had absolutely no luck when it came to dating. He was acting so strangely that when officers asked why he even had condoms in the first place, he mumbled something about breaking into 2 neighboring apartments and randomly deciding to steal them. In other words, he had just admitted to illegally entering other people's homes, literally just a few feet away from Lauren's apartment. Police immediately arrested him on burglary charges and took him in for further questioning.
Macon police say a canine unit from Dooley County has volunteered to help in the search for the remains of murdered Mercer grad Lauren Giddings. Macon police are following several leads in the case, but so far have no official suspects. Giddings' neighbor, 25-year-old Stephen McDaniel, remains in jail tonight on unrelated burglary charges. Police continue to gather statements from students and neighbors in what they're calling a detailed, painstaking process.
Even though he had previously been eager to talk to reporters and constantly tried to find out everything that was happening, Stephen now completely shut down and withdrew into himself.
All right. I just got to ask you a few more questions. Okay. You came down earlier tonight, me and you talked, all right. You don't have any weapons on you, do you? No. That's just you are. What's wrong? You know I'm Detective Patterson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember? Put your hands up here. You remember us talking? I need to know about this girl right here. You know her?
Yes.
Who is that?
Lauren Giddings.
Does she live next door to you?
Yes.
Okay. Look at me when you talk to me, son. Okay? Was you friends with her?
Yes.
I'm asking you for help. I need your help. Can you help me?
I don't know.
You don't know if you can help me?
Yes.
I need your help. Help me out. Tell me what to do.
There were obvious contradictions in his statements, and he clearly didn't want to answer questions. Most of his responses were just short replies like yes, no, or I don't know.
What do you think happened to her?
I don't know.
Do you even care that no one can find her? I mean, I don't know, do you?
Yes.
Well, you know there was a body found in the trash can next to the apartments.
Yes.
And it's a female, white female's body, right next to y'all's apartment. We don't know 100% sure it's Lauren, but we're pretty confident it is. I mean, who would do something to somebody and throw them in a trash can?
I don't know.
And you know why we've been working all day trying to find Lauren, right?
Yes.
Because her family wants to know where she's at.
Yes.
And I don't know what to tell her family. So I'm asking you, what do I need to tell her family?
I don't know.
It's all on you, brother. What do you want me to tell her family? Huh?
I don't know.
Well, I need to know.
On top of that, his behavior felt incredibly unnatural. Officers later said they had never seen anything like his reaction during an interrogation before. He sat almost completely motionless the entire time, barely even moving his head, and detectives occasionally had to ask him to actually look them in the eyes. In the sped-up footage from the interrogation, it's especially disturbing to see just how unnaturally still he was and how strange it looked compared to the detective's normal movements. Even when investigators left the room, he stayed frozen in the exact same position, staring straight ahead. His constant repetition of no and I don't know was already starting to get under Detective Patterson's skin. At that point, Detective Patterson no longer had any doubt that this was the man responsible for the horror that had happened to Lauren.
You got your ass on that fucking news and stood out there and gave a media report that her mother saw. You sure stood out there and ran your mouth to the news media, but now you're gonna get out here and you don't fucking know. You're just a sorry piece of shit that don't give a fuck.
Why would you not be honest with me?
I am being honest.
Stephen, it just doesn't feel like it, buddy. You know, I get the sense that there's something weighing heavy on your heart right now.
Stephen, did you hurt Lauren?
No.
What'd you do, buddy?
I didn't do anything.
What'd you do to Lauren?
I didn't do anything.
But by then, it was already late into the night, and they still hadn't made any real progress in getting answers.
You're gonna look at this right here, this little girl right here, and you're gonna say you don't know? I know you know.
I don't know.
Yes, you know. What are you gonna say tomorrow when I say we got your hair with the body? I believe that you're a good guy. You've been picked on. Girls didn't show you the respect that you deserved. You did something stupid, and I believe you feel bad about it. And that's why you're all freaked out right now. We want you to tell it so that way people understand you're not a monster. Things just, you got out of control. It's a sickness. Why'd you do it, Stephen?
I didn't do it.
Stephen, why are you going to keep telling that? You hurt that girl.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did, Stephen. I'm going to take this from me. You don't deserve to look at it. Just stay right here, okay?
Okay.
I appreciate all your cooperation tonight, okay?
Okay.
Stephen also admitted that he had 2 scratches slightly above his hip. While the interrogation was going on, investigators were tearing his apartment apart. They discovered that somehow he had obtained a master key capable of opening every apartment in the complex. Officers also found packaging from a hacksaw, several flash drives that later turned out to contain disturbing and graphic photos and videos involving children, and a pair of women's underwear that forensic testing confirmed belonged to Lauren Giddings. A review of his search history revealed that he was constantly visiting Lauren's social media pages, often at the same time he was searching for and watching violent pornography. Investigators also discovered that he wrote blog posts about torturing and murdering women and shared his disturbing fantasies on online forums. All of it was deeply disturbing, and considering how many times he had searched Lauren's name, it became obvious that he was completely obsessed with her. And one of his final internet searches was for the garbage pickup schedule in Macon. Inside the complex's maintenance room, investigators found a hacksaw that matched the packaging discovered in Stephen's apartment. There was blood on it. CCTV footage also confirmed that he was the one who purchased the hacksaw. In the same area, officers found a blood-stained bedsheet, and forensic testing later confirmed both items were connected to Lauren. The maintenance worker had already been ruled out as a suspect, and the only other person who had a key to that room was Stephen. He was the one who killed Lauren. But who exactly was Stephen McDaniel, and why did he do it? People who went to school with Stephen said being around him felt uncomfortable. He was socially awkward and extremely difficult to talk to. He asked people strange questions about death, constantly obsessed over zombie apocalypses and the idea of the perfect murder, and would ask others how they would hypothetically kill someone and get away with it. Back in school, Stephen had even been voted most likely to become famous. His classmates from law school said he clearly believed he was the smartest person in any room, smarter than everyone else, and he acted incredibly arrogant because of it. He was always ready to argue, even when he was completely wrong. He clashed with a lot of people, including Lauren, and students said he actually seemed to enjoy provoking arguments and creating conflict. He wasn't there to make friends. That was obvious, one classmate said. Both students and professors described him as an average student. He wasn't someone who particularly stood out academically, but he talked as if he were exceptional. Now his time at the university was coming to an end, and he had absolutely no idea what he wanted to do next. He was graduating with no friends and no plans for the future. It felt like he was just drifting through life. From the very beginning, after they started living near each other in 2008, Lauren genuinely tried to be kind to him and include him. At one point, she even stopped to introduce him to her mother Karen after seeing him wandering around the complex alone in a hurry. Karen saw him again the day before graduation. There was something strange about him, she later said. After that second conversation, she couldn't stop thinking about the fact that he lived right next door to Lauren. I always thought it was strange that he kept his windows and curtains closed all the time. You never saw him, Karen recalled. But even though Lauren tried to be nice to him, he gave her the same feeling he gave most people. She felt uncomfortable around him. In an email, Lauren wrote to David back in 2008, the same year she moved there. She mentioned Stephen's behavior and wrote about constantly arguing with him during classes. She said, "He looks at me with hatred. It feels like he's against me." But Stephen was clearly fascinated with Lauren and asked her out several times. Besides the fact that she was already in a relationship, she simply wasn't interested in him romantically. After that, Lauren remained polite whenever she happened to see him, but she also clearly tried to keep her distance. Based on everything investigators uncovered, on August 2nd, 2011, Stephen McDaniel was officially charged with the murder of Lauren Giddings. Later, he was also charged with 7 counts related to the sexual exploitation of children.
Stephen, how are you, buddy?
All right.
Let me ask you a few more questions.
I had nothing to say without my attorney.
You don't want to hear what we have?
Yeah.
All right.
I want my attorney.
Even though his attorneys asked for bail to be set at $100,000, the court set it at nearly $1 million instead. A grand jury officially indicted him on 1 count of murder. And after investigators finally completed a full examination of all his electronic devices, he was also charged with 30 counts related to the sexual exploitation of children.
The case building against Stephen McDaniel in the murder of his neighbor Lauren Giddings is getting stronger.
Today, a grand jury announced there's enough evidence to prepare for trial.
1 count of murder and 30 counts of sexual exploitation of children. Those are the heavy charges stacked against McDaniel, who's been in jail since July 1st on unrelated burglary charges. More than 20 grand jurors heard from the district attorney's office this morning before deciding there's enough evidence to let this case go to trial. This indictment says evidence shown today leads the grand jury to believe Stephen McDaniel did kill, murder, and cause the death of Lauren Giddings, a human being, by inflicting bodily harm in a manner unknown to the grand jury at this time, including decapitation of said victim. Since the grand jury has decided there is enough probable cause in this case, the next step is arraignment. That's when McDaniel will enter his plea, and according to his attorney, Floyd Buford, it'll be not guilty.
Even though the evidence against him was extremely serious, prosecutors still acknowledged that much of the case was built on circumstantial evidence. Other than the women's underwear, there was nothing directly tying his DNA to Lauren. Investigators found none of his forensic evidence in the bathroom, and his DNA also wasn't found on the hacksaw. As for the underwear, he could have potentially explained that away the same way he explained the condoms by claiming he had simply stolen them. Police still couldn't determine the exact cause of death or the precise time of the murder, but despite that, investigators remained confident in their case and were fully prepared to take it to trial. Then, not long afterward, new evidence surfaced that finally confirmed everything, and what investigators saw was horrifying. On a memory card recovered from his apartment, investigators found video footage proving that Stephen had been stalking Lauren for a long time. Her fears and the feeling that someone was watching her and entering her apartment turned out to be completely real. On the very night Lauren was murdered, he had been secretly filming her apartment through the windows. He taped a camera to a long wooden pole and lifted it up to her windows so he could peer through the blinds and look inside her rooms.
Thank you for watching up to the point where you start to understand just how sick and terrifying all of this really was. Truly. Lauren wasn't imagining the danger. She wasn't just stressing herself out because of anxiety or school. Someone was literally following her with their own hands, invading her personal space, peeking through her windows, and watching her at night. And it really breaks me to think that she lived literally just a few meters away from her future killer. She greeted him, saw him almost every day. And she couldn't even realize how obsessed he was with her. And honestly, it's moments like these in true crime that scare me the most. Not some random maniacs, somewhere far away, but people who can be next to you for years, look strange, but at the same time hide a really dangerous obsession.
Prosecutor David Cook later said that the very second he saw that footage, his immediate thought was, it was him. A few days later, hundreds of people filled St. Mary of the Mills Church for Lauren's funeral. Despite all of investigators' efforts, only her torso was ever recovered, and that was the only part of her family was able to bury that day.
Today, the Bibb County District Attorney's Office announced it plans to seek the death penalty against Stephen McDaniel.
Stephen McDaniel continued claiming he was innocent, and his defense team prepared to argue that police had framed him and repeatedly entered his apartment to plant evidence. Then the case took another strange turn. One of Stephen's attorneys, who had briefly worked with him in the past, turned out to be a former instructor of Lauren's in a course designed to help students transition from law school into legal practice. He said he had admired Lauren and genuinely enjoyed teaching her, but there was one thing he remembered very clearly. She was strongly opposed to the death penalty, so knowing prosecutors were pushing for exactly that punishment, he tried to have the death penalty removed from the case. While everyone was preparing for what would have been an extremely difficult trial, prosecutors agreed to drop the child sexual exploitation charges and offered Stephen a plea deal instead. And because of that, after consulting with his attorneys, Stephen changed his position. In April of 2014, just 1 week before the trial was set to begin, Stephen McDaniel finally pleaded guilty to murdering and dismembering Lauren.
For nearly 3 years, two huge unanswered questions hung over the death of Lauren Giddings. What happened the night she died, and what happened to the rest of her body, since only her torso was found after the murder. Today, Stephen McDaniel spelled out the answers to those questions in chilling detail. As part of his plea deal with prosecutors, McDaniel agreed to write an allocution, a document detailing what he did and how.
Stephen McDaniel is a psychopath who cowardly
allowed darkness and evil to consume him. He should never be permitted to prowl the streets of this world again.
That is the voice of Karen Giddings, the mother of Lauren Giddings, the Mercer Law grad who was killed almost 3 years ago.
Today, Stephen McDaniel entered a guilty plea to the murder of Lauren Giddings. His guilty plea provides finality to this case and assures justice that cannot be undone. Because of this guilty plea, Stephen McDaniel will never again be able to deny that he and he alone is responsible for Lauren Giddings' death.
One of his former attorneys later said the case took a dramatic turn for McDaniel once the digital evidence from his computer started coming in, and it just kept piling up. They were finding more and more evidence connected to his computer and his camera, and eventually he realized it was enough to convict him. Before sentencing, prosecutors introduced evidence meant to show the kind of person he really was. They presented the surveillance footage of Lauren's apartment and read aloud some of the disturbing posts Stephen had allegedly written on online forums. One of them said, "Finish law school, get completely wasted drinking alone in front of my computer, watch my sexy neighbor and classmate come home late at night, invite her over for a nightcap, make her a special cocktail called a Mickey Finn, a drink designed to make someone lose consciousness. She passes out, I finally lose my virginity. Oh no, she overdoses and dies. I roasted her legs and arms on the barbecue to celebrate losing my virginity. I don't like organs, so I threw out the torso. Then I go on television and fake a breakdown while the cops find her remains. You're all just angry virgins." However, the authenticity of that post was later questioned, because some people believed it could have simply been internet trolling. And while prosecutors were convinced Stephen was the author, the issue is still debated to this day. As part of his plea agreement, he was required to give the court a detailed account of what happened that night. And this is how he described it. Around 4:30 in the morning, he unlocked Lauren's apartment door using the master key. He was dressed completely in black and wearing gloves and a mask. He said he stood there watching her sleep, but at some point Lauren must have sensed something was wrong because she suddenly woke up. Before she could get out of bed or fully understand what was happening, he rushed at her and grabbed her by the throat. The two of them struggled and fell to the floor. According to Stephen, Lauren grabbed his mask and ripped it off, and the moment she realized it was him, she called him by name and started screaming for him to stop.
Now imagine this horror from the outside. Lauren. She wakes up in the middle of the night in her own apartment, sees a man in a mask, and begins to fight for her life. And then she rips off the mask and realizes it's her neighbor, a person she had known for years. What breaks her the most is that until the very end, she tried to stop him with words. She called him by name, screamed, begged him to stop. That is, at that moment, Lauren believed that there was still something human left in him. But for Stephen, at that moment, her life no longer meant anything. And that's exactly what makes this story so terrifying.
She cried and fought back for nearly 15 minutes while he strangled her, until eventually she stopped breathing. He dragged her into the bathroom and placed her inside the bathtub. Her body remained there through the entire night and the following day. Then, on the evening of June 27th, he returned with tools, including a hacksaw, and began dismembering her body, later describing the process in horrifying detail. He placed the body parts into separate bags and, according to his statement, threw them into dumpsters across different areas of the university campus. He left the torso in the dumpster near the apartment complex, believing it would be hauled away quickly. He cut up his mask, gloves, and t-shirt into pieces and flushed them down the toilet. The medical examiner had already confirmed there was no evidence of sexual assault, and Stephen stated in court that he did not sexually assault Lauren. She was wearing pink athletic shorts when she died, and I never removed them. They were found on her torso exactly the way I left them, he said. And even though nearly 3 years had passed since the murder, people still couldn't believe what had happened. From the very beginning, Lauren had treated him with nothing but kindness and respect. Even Stephen himself admitted that. He claimed that after that night, he was in some kind of dreamlike, detached state and convinced himself Lauren was somehow still alive. He said, "It's hard for me to explain why I killed Lauren and tried to cover it up the way I did. I know what I did was terribly wrong. I'm not insane, and I'm not without morality or humanity. I guess it comes from something in my nature, my psychology, my neurology, or some kind of personal pathology." He told Lauren's family that he regretted what he had done and thought about her every single day, but said he did not expect forgiveness from them. "I could never deserve it. If I could take it all back, I would." He also claimed the only reason prosecutors ultimately decided not to pursue the death penalty was because Lauren herself had been strongly against that form of punishment. Her family respected that position and said they hoped he would live a very long life under the worst possible conditions in prison. Stephen McDaniel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole until 2041. After sentencing, he wrote a long letter from prison claiming he had been the victim of police pressure and that the entire case against him had been unfair from the beginning.
Continue to get new glimpses into the psyche of Stephen McDaniel. In a neatly handwritten 2-page document filled with small lettering, Stephen McDaniel outlines his experiences with Macon police. He complains that police yelled at him and intimidated him in an interrogation room for hours during the early stages of the investigation and wouldn't even let him go to the restroom without permission. McDaniel details being so upset he suffered a seizure and required medical help, but was only told that the EMT could look at him if he'd allow police to search his apartment. He says even after they got into his apartment, police never gave him medical care.
He demanded a new trial that he believed would finally be fair. Then, 4 years later, he filed an appeal representing himself and requested that more than 10 people be questioned, including his former attorney, from whom he was also seeking compensation.
Now, things really didn't pick up until later in the afternoon as McDaniel began questioning his former attorney, Floyd Buford. And McDaniel decided to waive his attorney-client privilege, meaning that Buford had the ability to speak freely regarding his discussions with Stephen McDaniel.
Up until the last couple of weeks of your case, I was strongly in your corner. The graphic, specific, detailed confession, which we were shocked about in the jail, and then combine that with the searches on the internet, the fact that you had done searches about having sex with dead people, things of that nature. All of that combined to a heavy evidentiary problem in your case. On top of that, you possess the most horrific child pornographic photos I've ever seen.
Now, in McDaniel's habeas, he claims that Floyd Buford, Frank Hogue, and the rest of his defense team failed to represent him effectively. Here's what Buford had to say today about that.
Started off facing a death penalty. It ended up with life with possibility of parole. You could get out one day, Stephen.
In his complaint, Stephen demanded that the court force his attorney to repay $50,000 in legal fees, along with an additional $250,000 in punitive damages for what he claimed was attorney negligence. He also filed a motion against Bibb County Judge Howard Sims, arguing that the judge had been biased against him. That appeal was denied. Then, in 2022, the now 37-year-old McDaniel filed another appeal, claiming prosecutors had stolen documents, his rights had been violated, and his attorneys had been incompetent. He demanded that his conviction be overturned and that he be released from prison. Stephen's father, Mark, supported the appeal and said, "We're just hoping the truth finally comes out. That's all we're hoping for." But the judge ruled that the court could not even consider the appeal because it had been filed more than a year past the legal deadline. That appeal was denied as well. If McDaniel had shown reasonable diligence instead of blindly blaming the Georgia Supreme Court, he would have realized his motion was filed too late, the judge added. Stephen has already filed yet another appeal, and that process is still ongoing. Some members of his family and a few friends continue to believe he is innocent, and his father even created a GoFundMe campaign to help cover legal expenses. But the campaign raised no money, and the page was quickly deleted. Lauren's sister Caitlin called it pathetic and completely detached from reality. Before his death, Stephen's grandfather, Hollis, gave an interview about visiting him in prison. He said, "If everything the police are saying is true, then I guess I'm just a grandfather with a broken heart. You go in there to see him, and he just sits there silently. You can barely get a word out of him. It makes you want to take him to a doctor, but he's a grown man now. He's not a little boy anymore, and it's heartbreaking. You have to accept what's in front of you, whether you like it or not." He also said, "I did what I thought was right at the time. I immediately got him a lawyer. I thought I'd go down there, post bail, and bring him home. But my God, when I saw him, he looked completely different." His mother, Glenda, defended him as well and remained convinced that he had been innocent at the time of his arrest. "I'm going to hug him tightly when he gets out, and he'll hug me back," she said, adding that she once imagined him becoming a Supreme Court judge someday. But for police, prosecutors, and Lauren's family, the case had been over for years, and they believed the right decision had already been made a long time ago. Lauren's sister, Caitlin, said Lauren may have been one of the very few people who genuinely treated Stephen with kindness and gave him attention, despite the fact that he was such a loner. There's no moral to this story about teaching your kids to lock their car doors or avoid certain parts of town. There's no lesson here like, she shouldn't have done this and then none of this would have happened. Because people need to be kind. You should be kind to your neighbors. Just because someone looks different doesn't mean they're dangerous. Then she added, but in this case, he really was. Detectives believe they stopped a potential serial killer that day, a predator and a danger to children. He was once voted the person most likely to become famous, and instead he became infamous for one of the most shocking crimes this community had ever seen. Police praised Lauren's family and friends for acting so quickly and admitted that if the garbage truck had managed to remove the dumpster containing her torso, the case might have gone cold forever, and Stephen may never have been caught. Investigators also believe Stephen was never fully honest about what happened and that there are still details in this case that remain hidden. I'm convinced there are things he will never tell anyone, said Detective David Patterson. Lauren's sister, Sarah, added, obviously, we know she died, but we don't believe almost anything Stephen McDaniel says. I don't think he's an honest person at all. I think he's capable of making up a million different stories. He has a very vivid imagination. The search for the rest of Lauren's remains is still ongoing to this day. Investigators believe they could even be somewhere on a 62-acre property owned by one of Stephen's relatives. And although he will become eligible to apply for parole in 2041, legal experts believe he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. And you know, after stories like this, there's always a very strange feeling left behind. Because Stephen took absolutely everything from Lauren. Her future, her career, her family, a life that was just beginning. But despite all that, he still couldn't take away the most important thing, the memory of her. And I think that's very clear from the way her friends and family still remember her. Not as a victim from a tragic story, but as a living person. I mean, a good, ambitious, very bright and honest cause. What breaks me the most about this case is that Lauren was kind to him. She didn't mock him, didn't humiliate him, didn't do anything bad to him. She was simply a normal person. But sometimes even kindness can't save you from people who have long since lost the line between obsession, fantasy, and real danger. Lauren's family continues to celebrate every important milestone and every major life moment she should have been there for, as if she's still right beside them. Every year, they also organize memorial runs in her honor. Her sister Caitlin named her daughter Lauren Magnolia after her. In Mon, 2 memorial plaques were dedicated to Lauren, one at Mercer Law School and another on a pink bench in Washington Park in downtown Mercer, a place where Lauren loved to run. Her family also created the Lauren Teresa Giddings Scholarship in her memory. At the law firm where Lauren once interned, people always remembered her for her love of bright colors, especially pink. They even started calling Wednesdays Pink Wednesdays in her honor, joking that she reminded them of Elle Woods from Legally Blonde. One of her close friends said Lauren's love for color, in a profession where everyone was used to black pinstripe suits, always made people smile and sparked conversations. She stepped into a profession associated with black suits, and pink was her way of telling the world, go ahead and try to stop me, and her friends said that perfectly described Lauren Giddings. She refused to be overlooked and never apologized for who she was, driven, ambitious, and ready to take on any challenge. Caitlin said, it's not like she's no longer part of our lives, she is. Everything is just different now. And thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to support our channel and help us continue creating content, please don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe. It really helps us out, and we truly appreciate it. And we truly appreciate it. July 8th, 2021. A Ring camera captures 23-year-old Chandler Halderson walking around the neighborhood, going door to door, asking people if they've seen his parents Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson. According to Chandler, they packed their bags for the 4th of July weekend and headed up to the family cabin in White Lake, Wisconsin, along with another couple planning to fix a fireplace. But as the days go by, Chandler says he can't get in touch with them. Their phones go straight to voicemail every time.
So my last message I got from them, they were going to White Lake for the 4th of July to a cabin.
Why would they not call? Why wouldn't there be a text or something? We were worried that, are they being held hostage somewhere?
No one even suspected that Bart and Krista had already disappeared forever. And what the detectives were about to uncover would reveal a web of financial lies, forgeries, personal betrayals, and a cold-blooded killer who was hiding right in plain sight. This story is full of cruelty, death, and violence. But before we begin, I would like to ask you to leave a comment. Where are you watching this video from, and what time is it for you right now? This really helps our channel grow. Now, let's get to our story.
I think it's time we start talking about what happened to your parents. Like the truthful version. What? Because listen to me. This is the only chance you're gonna have to tell us the truth. We know your parents are no longer with us. Okay, and we know the reason why.
July 7th, 2021. 23-year-old Chandler Michael Halderson walks into the Dane County Sheriff's Office and files a missing persons report for his parents, Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson. According to Chandler, on Friday, July 2nd, they left for the family cabin in White Lake, Wisconsin to spend the 4th of July weekend out in nature. They were supposed to be back by Monday, but now it's already Wednesday, and there's still no word from them. Their phones also go straight to voicemail every time, which, Chandler points out, isn't all that unusual because the cell service near the cabin is really poor. Investigators figure maybe they just decided to stay a few extra days for some reason, but Chandler's girlfriend, Catherine, has a different take on it.
His parents are usually, like, on time, but, like, it was like they'll be back, you know? And then, like, they're supposed to be back early Tuesday morning if they didn't make it back Monday night. And it's like, his dad's very punctual.
Okay.
So, and, like, his mom was supposed to work Tuesday.
Neither of them shows up for work, and Krista is even at risk of losing her job if she doesn't come in. Normally, they would have at least let their son and their workplaces know if they were going to be delayed or stay longer. Something about this just doesn't feel right. Those suspicions only grow stronger when it turns out they didn't even leave on their own. According to Chandler Halderson, friends picked them up early in the morning on July 2nd, before he even woke up, and he doesn't even know who those friends are. At this point, Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson could literally be anywhere. What investigators don't realize yet is that Chandler knows a lot more than he's saying, and that's going to become more and more obvious as the investigation unfolds. For now, officers head out to the cabin to search for the couple, while Chandler spends the rest of the day talking to local news outlets, pushing the story out as much as possible, hoping someone out there comes forward with new information.
Chandler Halderson says his parents, Krista and Bart, were getting picked up by friends that Friday.
Their plans were going up with their friends and do some minor repairs on our cabin.
That cabin is some 3 hours away from Windsor on a lake in a small community in Langlade County.
I was told they'd be home Monday or Tuesday, and Tuesday afternoon I got a little worried.
It seems that Chandler is genuinely concerned about his parents' safety. The very people who supported him every step of the way, even when it wasn't easy. From the outside, it looks like real anxiety, almost a desperate attempt to understand what's going on. But in this story, every emotion makes you look closer, because behind the outward worry, there may be much more hidden. Sometimes they were a bit strict, not out of coldness, but out of a desire to guide, support, and help. Those who knew them described them as some of the most reliable people in their lives. People you could count on without unnecessary words, without conditions, and without doubts. Bart was the kind of neighbor who would quietly clear the snow from your driveway before you even thought about it. Without thanks, without attention, simply because it was the right thing to do. His kindness was not loud, but it was felt in every action. And Krista was a free spirit, warm, open, with that special energy that fills the space around her. She loved her children more than anything in the world. And this love was not ostentatious, but deep, sincere, the kind you can feel even in silence.
They're his parents. They're important. Like, I hang out with them. We play Mario Kart. His mom makes the Toad sound every time she selects Toad. No, Yoshi. The Yoshi sound. That's exactly how she does it. Loose every time, but like I don't know. I just don't understand how you couldn't like be worried or emotional.
I know. I mean, that's why we're here. We're worried.
Yeah.
You're worried.
At the family cabin, officers are met by Chandler's older brother, Mitchell Halderson, along with his girlfriend, and they begin searching the property, looking for any sign of the couple.
Hi there. Hi there. I'm Detective Sergeant Grones of Langlade County. Are you guys,
The Halderson?
you are affiliated with them?
Yes.
Okay. What's your relation? You're their son. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Maybe we could just take a walk around and see. You would know the property probably better than we would.
It's changed a bit since I've been here, but yeah.
Sure. How long has it been in the family?
It always been in the family since the 40s.
Okay. Do you guys typically use it a lot, or?
A few times a year. That's when my parents come up. I haven't come in a while.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let me just grab my windows quick, and then we'll take a look around, and we'll go from there. Okay. Do you guys have a boat or anything up here?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to try to get in there as well to see if any of them are missing.
Boathouse? Okay.
Yeah, that's the boathouse there. I mean, everything looks still pretty closed up. Like
So far, nothing seems suspicious, but the officers haven't gone inside the cabin yet. It's locked up on all sides, so they have to force their way in, hoping to find at least some kind of clue that might point to where the couple could be.
Sheriff's office, anybody inside? Announce your presence, make yourselves known.
And there's a trapdoor basement.
Okay. Upstairs looks pretty small. I can see a bed that's made up.
Did you check these two doors, or?
Not yet.
Okay.
The cabin turns out to be eerily empty. Dust covers every surface, completely undisturbed. There are no fresh supplies, and the vegetation around the cabin looks totally untouched. Just like Mitchell Halderson said, it's only used a few times a year, and from the way it looks, no one's been there in a very long time, definitely not just a few days ago like Chandler Halderson claimed. So then, officers force open the nearby boathouse, hoping they might find some kind of clue inside.
This saved the life. A boat, a canoe, tube, silly seals.
Does your family did any other property like up here or in the area at all? Okay.
The boathouse nearby also contains all 3 boats belonging to the Halderson family. And since none of them are missing, the theory that they decided to go on a trip, that theory also falls apart. All signs indicate that the couple never made it to the cabin. And this raises the main question, what happened to them? The answer to that will turn out to be far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Given this, investigators turn their attention to the last known location of Bart and Krista, their house. And at first glance, it looks completely ordinary. The first thing that catches the eye is the fireplace, which is missing one glass panel. It's a bit strange, but nothing immediately alarming. But then, investigators take a closer look and notice that some parts of the house are suspiciously clean, as if they had been thoroughly washed very recently. The kitchen floor tiles and cabinets have been removed, which Chandler explained was due to ongoing renovations. But the most important evidence, these are huge bloodstains scattered throughout the house, especially in the basement. They are invisible to the naked eye, likely due to recent cleaning. However, with the help of luminol, investigators discover a disturbingly large number of these traces. That's another major red flag, because it would have made a lot more sense for those stains to be inside the cabin if something had happened there, not inside the house. The only person who can really provide more answers at this point is Chandler Halderson. He's the last one who saw Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson on the day they supposedly left for the cabin. So, on the morning of July 8th, less than 24 hours after the initial report, officers pick Chandler up and bring him to the public safety building for questioning. Up to this point, he's been fully cooperative, and detectives expect that to continue. But the moment he's left alone, surveillance cameras inside the interrogation room capture him doing something very strange.
3, 2.
It almost looks like Chandler Halderson is trying to eavesdrop on what the detectives are saying outside the door. You could write it off as simple curiosity, just wanting to know if they've found any leads. But if that were the case, he could have just asked them directly when they came back into the room. And when the detectives do walk in, he actually does ask about what the officers were doing at his house.
By the way, a detective at my house said something's happened, and while we were leaving, people were going inside. Is there a warrant for my house?
Should there be?
No, I'm just wondering if...
Okay.
Can they go in?
As far as I know, they were at your house and they were going to be there talking to you to ask if you would come up here and talk to us.
But Officer Haley just like walked pretty much in to the gate, you know, the gate on the outside. She just kind of walked in. I was wondering if...
Was that when you were getting your wallet?
No, we were I was in the car waiting to leave. I was just wondering if everything's okay, because she said something's happened.
The unusual findings inside the house are still a major mystery, and Chandler Halderson's sudden concern about what exactly was discovered there only adds to the suspicion. But for now, detectives don't make any direct accusations. The last thing they want is for him to shut down and ask for a lawyer. Instead, they focus on getting a full, detailed account of what happened from him. What they don't expect, though, is that Chandler came in prepared.
Let's just go back to last Wednesday.
Wednesday. I was with my dad. What time Wednesday? I remember it. It was kind of a bad day.
Okay. Why was it a bad day?
Well, my mom had work, so she was gone. My dad and I were watching something over lunch. It was The Wheel of Fortune. And we normally have the couch, like, with our back facing the table we sat at the end of you coming.
Downstairs or upstairs?
Downstairs.
Okay.
You know, that room with the TV. I tossed the ball, and I smashed the glass.
Okay.
With the dog. The dog's help. That set my dad off, and we tried to clean it up. I don't know about him, but I got injured.
In just about a minute, Chandler Halderson gives what seems like a perfectly reasonable explanation for the missing glass in the fireplace. What detectives don't realize yet is just how disturbing the truth behind that broken glass is going to be. Then he keeps that same story going, using it to explain another suspicious thing investigators found.
All right, so you were tossing a ball. What type of ball was it?
Just this gross, hairy tennis ball that Rizzo loves.
All right. Just like a green tennis ball, like a normal.
Yeah.
Normal. Okay.
With the squeaker, not like a tennis racket ball, but
they don't chew those. My dog chews those out of any tennis ball. They just chew the squeakers out and then they don't play with them anymore. All right, so you're just tossing that around, broke the fireplace glass. You said you were injured. What type of injury?
I got a pretty deep hole in my foot. Last night, Mary looked at it and she said the reason it keeps bleeding is because there's glass in it.
Oh, you showed us your toe.
Yeah, I showed the detective.
Yeah.
Catherine, who's being questioned at the same time, backs up that story as well. But there's one key contradiction between what Chandler Halderson says at first and what she actually saw.
I mean, are we talking massive amounts of blood, or are we talking, a little bit? Like, describe.
It started as drops until I got to the bathroom. And then I got back to go grab my sock and some of the paper towel. And then I see the glasses in there, so I grab the tweezers and I pull it out. And then it starts squirting out.
And did you see, like, the blood in the glass? Was that all picked up?
It was pretty much all picked up, except, like, a little bit of glass was still there. Honestly, I didn't see, like, a lot of blood, but probably because it was only a cut on his big toe.
Chandler Halderson claims the blood was literally spraying everywhere because of how serious his injury was, while Catherine says she barely saw anything like that at all. So either she just wasn't really paying attention to what was happening in his house, or Chandler is exaggerating or outright lying about how severe that injury actually was. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the inconsistencies in his story. When talking about what he did on the 4th of July, Chandler mentions that he went over for dinner at Catherine's mother's house, Dulce Melendez. But while he was there, he says he had some kind of emotional breakdown because of his condition.
So you were swimming, a little breakdown. What were you having a breakdown about?
You ever have Your legs
That's
kind
interesting.
of, yeah.
No, I haven't.
It's just I don't even know if they're done getting like as bad as they can be yet. So that's not fun.
And I think you were telling me last night it's a symptom of a concussion, right?
So
Is that right?
that's not it. It's a symptom of nerve damage from the hit in my spine. So it's permanent.
Okay, I understand that now better.
Yeah. So it's just legs. I think it's waist feeling is probably colostomy bag down the road.
He claims that the injury is so severe that it causes numbness in his legs and makes it impossible for him to drive a car. But at the same time, in his account, he describes how he drove to various places, including the Duluth house, for dinner on July 4th, and then to the family friend Dan's place to watch fireworks. At this point, detectives begin to find contradictions in almost everything Chandler says. For example, he claims that he contacted the police because he was worried. In reality, it was Dan who convinced him to file a missing persons report. He also repeatedly said that Bart and Krista left with friends on the morning of July 2nd before he woke up. He even showed a message that he supposedly received from his mother. On July 4th, it said that they had arrived safely and would go to the parade later that day. But here's the thing, these mysterious friends do not exist. Surveillance cameras from the Sid's house show that no one entered their yard that morning. In fact, Krista and Bart did not leave the house at all. So whatever happened to them took place inside the house. Despite all these inconsistencies, the detectives allow him to continue his story.
And at 6:15 when I woke up, I was a little late that day.
6:15 Friday. Okay.
That's just when I looked at my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs saw my Ma's note, the insurance for my appointment. I just ate whatever's on the counter. I think it was cornbread.
Where was the note from your mom?
That was on the kitchen. Like, there's a peninsula.
Yeah.
With the insurance stacked up. But I moved it to the table.
Okay. And then those insurance cards were there also that we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
The note that Krista Halderson supposedly left read, "Good morning, Chandler. Hope your day goes really well." As detectives would later find out, Krista actually wrote that note about a week before the trip to the cabin on July 2nd. Chandler Halderson had simply placed it on the living room table before going to the police, trying to make it look like she left it on the day she disappeared. And this is where his carefully prepared story really starts to fall apart. He gets mixed up and can't even remember which exact day his girlfriend was with him.
Alright, so Friday during the day, just played video games, kind of.
Yeah, then after work, I believe that was the day Kat came over.
After whose work?
Kat, she is
after her work.
5 is her work when she was off. That might have been my own night. I might be wrong. I'm wrong.
Okay.
I think I spent that night alone. I just kind of gamed online with some of my friends. I said Saturday night.
Detectives' suspicions only grow stronger when even people outside of law enforcement start noticing something off about Chandler Halderson's behavior. Earlier that same day, for example, he asked a neighbor to check their doorbell camera footage, and even that neighbor found the way he was acting suspicious. In a message to police, he wrote, "My sister felt sorry for him. I don't see any sadness about his parents. What I see is concern about the camera angles."
Yeah, did it capture anything on?
We don't know. We don't know. They just took a copy of everything, and so we're hoping.
Why didn't go in?
Given everything investigators already know, there's a strong possibility that Chandler Halderson is involved in his own parents' disappearance, but Catherine just can't bring herself to believe it.
You don't think he had anything to do with his mom and dad being unheard from?
No. No. All my friends I've talked to, they're like, no, not Chandler, no. Like, that'd be crazy. Sorry, I sound very monotone right now, but like, just no. No. Mm-mm.
No?
No.
Not a mean bone in his body?
Well, everyone has a mean bone. They even said Mother Teresa was sometimes, like. but I just don't see him killing Mr. and Mrs. Halderson.
One of the main reasons for that level of trust is that Chandler Halderson didn't seem to have any real motive for something this extreme. He came across like someone who already had his life figured out, a solid education, experience in different fields at such a young age, and even what he claimed was a job offer from SpaceX. In her interview, Catherine talks about their plans getting married and moving to Florida because of his job with SpaceX, but things didn't go the way she expected at all.
How did his doctor's appointment go on Monday or Tuesday?
Not the Monday.
Okay.
Not the best. Told him like, hey, the stuttering will go away, but like the numbness is gonna like stay, you know? Because like he hit his head twice. They said like the numbness was from like a hemorrhage or something. And that's when he talked to his HR and he was like, I had to be honest with them, and that's how he lost the SpaceX job.
Catherine fully believes his story, not even suspecting the horrifying truth that detectives will later uncover. And to everyone around him, Chandler Halderson still looks like someone living a perfect life. For them, the idea that he could have killed his own parents feels almost impossible. But that possibility starts to rise sharply when officers make a disturbing discovery near a farm in Cottage Grove owned by an acquaintance of Dulce Melendez Cress. While one team of investigators follows every possible lead, another continues questioning Chandler. And when they receive a message from Cress about suspicious activity involving Chandler on her property, they move in immediately. Within minutes of searching, they find a dismembered male torso wrapped in a tarp on the farm. DNA analysis confirms the remains belong to Bart Halderson. A quick sweep of the area also turns up several tools, likely used in the murder, hidden inside an old metal barrel. Meanwhile, investigators searching the Halderson home uncover several key pieces of evidence, including both parents' phones wrapped in aluminum foil to prevent tracking. They also find 5 shell casings in the basement, suggesting that Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson were likely shot inside the house. At this point, detectives have more than enough circumstantial evidence to confront Chandler Halderson directly, and the moment they do, his behavior changes instantly.
I think it's time we start talking about what happened to your parents. Like the truthful version. Okay. Okay. So we have like 20 pages of writing. We're gonna start with a clean white piece of paper for you to start telling the truth. Okay. What? Because listen to me. This is the only chance you're gonna have to tell us the truth. Okay. Listen. I can't tell you what we know, but we know you're not telling us the truth. We know your parents are no longer with us. Okay, and we know the reason why. Okay, you need to tell the truth. Listen. You need to tell the truth about what happened, and just tell us why it happened. Okay? If something happened, if you were defending yourself, or if you just got fed up with stuff, you need to tell us the truth. Okay? This is your chance to tell us why. Okay? I'm not BSing you. Okay? So can we do that?
Okay, they're okay. Lawyer. I'm sorry. Say it again, Chandler. Lawyer. Okay. Because they're okay.
You want a lawyer?
Yeah. Okay.
He goes from giving a detailed account of every minute of his life while his parents were away to complete silence and demanding a lawyer. Krista's fate is still unknown, and Chandler's sudden silence does not work in his favor at all. Now the detectives need to find out not only what exactly he did, but also why. The answer to the first question they obtain by reconstructing his actions on the day he likely killed his parents. And what they discover is one of the most horrific acts a son can commit against his own parents. It all started when he shot his parents. First Bart at around 1:30 p.m. and then Christy when she returned from work at about 5:00 p.m. After that, on July 3rd, he goes to Cress's farm and asks for permission to use her heated pool as physical therapy for his legs. She agrees and lets him in, but when she checks an hour later, Chandler is gone, and the pool cover hasn't even been removed. His car is parked at the edge of the forest with the trunk open. Later, she reports this suspicious behavior, which ultimately leads to the discovery of Bart's remains. Investigators believe that the pool was just a pretext to dispose of the dismembered body in the forest. Unfortunately, there are still no clues about Christ's whereabouts. That is, until July 14th, when Katerina recalls one important detail. Suspecting Chandler Halderson of cheating, Snapchat's location tracking was turned on to monitor where he was. On July 3rd, she checked his location and was surprised to see him near the Wisconsin River, so she took a screenshot.
Chandler had been to that area many times before, but almost always with his parents. Him going there alone on July 3rd stood out as really unusual, but as it turns out, it wasn't random at all. When that area is later searched, investigators find dismembered remains that are eventually confirmed to belong to Krista Halderson. Put simply, July 3rd is when Chandler chose to dispose of his parents' bodies. Catherine's interview also helps investigators piece together what happened in the time between the murders of Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson and the disposal of their remains.
I'm sorry, you said you went to East Target, that you went from Hilldale to East Target?
No, from Hilldale to apartment to grab dirty clothes and clothes. To East, to my mom's house, to grab the hydrogen peroxide and the Swiffer because Chandler broke the glass of the fireplace that day and cut his toe, so he wanted to clean that and then clean up the glass and blood. And then we had burgers for dinner because he made me burgers because he burned his hands on the grill.
It's clear that Chandler Halderson used cleaning supplies to try to wash away the blood. And while his burned hands might seem like a minor detail, they actually point to one of the most disturbing things he did to his parents. Footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera shows a bright glow coming from the chimney of the Halderson home on the night of July 2nd. That, combined with bone fragments found in the fireplace, reveals the full extent of what happened. Chandler didn't just shoot and dismember his parents, Bart Halderson and Krista Halderson. He also tried to burn their remains in the fireplace, but the fire got out of control, cracking the glass and leaving clear burn marks around it. As the investigation moves toward its conclusion, detectives also uncover surveillance footage showing Chandler buying a tarp, which he later used to transport Bart's remains, as well as large bags of ice he used in an attempt to slow decomposition. And that leaves one question: why? Why would Chandler destroy what looked like a perfect life to commit something this horrific? But the deeper investigators dig into his life, the more complicated the truth becomes. It turns out he had been lying about almost everything to his parents and to his girlfriend. He never actually graduated from college, and he didn't work most of the jobs he claimed to have. In that same pattern, the supposed job offer from SpaceX was completely fabricated. A review of his devices shows he created fake email accounts that looked official and used them to deceive his parents. He would send emails to himself about school and work, building the illusion of a successful life, while in reality he spent most of his time playing video games. Chandler thought he had everything under control. He even exaggerated the symptoms from his fall to create an excuse for why he couldn't accept the fake job at SpaceX. But right when he thought he was safe, Bart Halderson started to uncover the truth, or at least he was getting very close. Chandler had told his parents he couldn't get his academic transcripts because the college was delaying them, so on July 1st, Bart called the college himself, pretending to be Chandler, trying to find out what was really going on.
Hi, I'm trying to get an appointment scheduled to meet with somebody to mainly just get a copy of the transcript and also a printed copy of a certificate that was earned and other degree verification. Okay, how do I get that done? Okay, for the degree, you have to download the duplicate diploma form and send it in with a check or a money order of $4 for the diploma to be mailed back to you. For the transcript, you have to go online and request it. Yeah, I tried requesting online and we never got them. And I've spent don't know how many times doing that at $8 a piece, so I'm not willing to do that again. Why is that letting you request your transcript? What is it? It's not my system, it's your system, so don't ask me questions like that. Okay, but I need to establish the problem first before I can know how to walk you through to get it. Are you by a computer? So I can walk you through on how to get it? I've gone through the process before. I worked with, I tried to work with Daniel Spike to see if he can get through the information. I don't know if he's with you guys anymore, but it just seems like the ball keeps getting dropped.
After that, he directly asks about the certificate and comes face to face with a shocking truth.
Now, if we've earned a certificate, say in that solar program, you said where does that get requested through? If you earned a certificate? Yeah. I don't see that you earned a certificate
So there were no, like, you were taking IT classes, right? I don't see that you were in a program.
Prior to the IT, there was a solar program too.
Yeah, but I don't see that you were Chandler Halderson.
No, there was an old account that got changed to this new one. So would it be under the old account that didn't get, or did all that get transferred over? Can you tell if those two were combined or not?
Hold on, let me see. No, I don't see a request for duplicate accounts. No,
How far back does that account go that you're looking at? Like when it was the first class taken?
18. Spell for me 18.
Oh, okay. So that does have all the history then.
But I don't see that you were admitted in any program.
You said they were, the IT degrees in there, right?
No, those are just classes. Like it's the general education classes and then the IT classes. You might have just took the classes but not be in the program.
It seemed that Bart was planning to go to the college with Chandler the next day to finally sort out this issue. The last sign that Bart was alive was a message he sent to Chandler on July 2nd at around 1:30 p.m. He wrote, "I'm ready, waiting for you to be." When the detectives put all the pieces of the story together, they uncovered one of the most horrifying elements in any murder case: the motive. For Chandler, cold-bloodedly murdering his own parents seemed like a better option than facing the consequences of his lies being exposed. He was arrested immediately after the interrogation on July 8, 2021. And in January 2022, he stood trial for the brutal murder of his parents, all simply because he did not want to be exposed as a liar. Chandler was charged with 8 serious offenses, including 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 2 counts of mutilating a corpse. He was formally convicted on every single one of the major criminal charges, and subsequently sentenced to serve life imprisonment without any possibility of parole.